Welcome back to another edition of Zero Blog 30. Today we have 5 rounds of the magazine for you. Round number 1. Hey there, fucking kitchen gloves. Give me 600 crows right down now for a working party. Round number 2. Someone update the old producer Kyle, because that cyber nerd would come if you heard this one. Apple's AirTags have uncovered a secret intel agency. The little Apple tiles, the
Apple
tiles are changing the game across the board. There's so many instances of people doing nefarious things with these little blocks of technology and doing good things with these. And now one lady who seems like the biggest Facebook mom of all time, undercover, she found a German intel agency. Well, she said she did. She wrote what essentially can only be described as a manifesto. Like I think if you write anything over like 5,000 words and it has a crazy tinge, it's not an article, it's not a blog, it's not a book, it automatically becomes a manifesto.
Okay. Right. And does the format play into that at all?
I think there's got to be at least like 3 to 4 run-ons sentences every like 2 or 3 paragraphs.
Okay.
Just a lot of run-on sentences.
Now I know how to identify a manifesto.
Round 3, the war drums continue to beat in Ukraine. We're going to try our best to give you an update, but I'm going to be honest, that shit is confusing. Round number 4, give them one. Fishermen and fisherwomen from Ireland are thwarting Russia's war games with nets, rods, and big old sets of brass balls and flaps. No word yet if they're using slits or not. Round number 5 or 4. No, that's 5. We're on number 5 now. Round number 5, President Biden signed into law a new statute of the UCMJ. Finally, sexual harassment has its own charge, and with it comes a long overdue sweeping change that is going to affect, hopefully, the military in a very positive way. People are excited about it. People are very confused about it, so we're going to try to break down.
The I Am Vanessa Guillen Act, and I have a lot to say, obviously, on it, but her family is just absolutely incredible. They're going to be the reason history changes for so many people who serve in the military. But anyway, yes, I'm thrilled that this passed. Finally,
it's great that it passed. And I went through some of our comments on the Instagram whenever we posted it up, and there was confusion about, didn't we already have this? The short answer is yes, and the long answer is no.
Right.
Like it's a complicated issue, but now it becomes a lot less murky, which is exactly what the aim of the legislation was. And all that today is going to be brought to you by our good friends at WhistlePig. If you haven't tried it yet, get on it. We need you to buy some WhistlePig by going to piggybackricemash.com. They're going to give you more info there. You can figure out where you can grab a box. If you've been looking for it in your area, they actually have a finder that you can go in, put in your zip code, and it'll tell you the closest spot to you and what they have, what types they have, and all that stuff. So it's pretty great. They have all kinds of flavors like fresh ginger, lime, blackberry, lemon fizz, and session citrus mint. And at a time where it seems like everybody in the world has a hard seltzer, this one's different because nobody else is making their drinks and their canned cocktails with delicious WhistlePig rye. WhistlePig rye, I guess is what you would say.
It's made in the barrels. It's delicious.
It's made in the barrels there and has 8% alcohol by volume. They're delicious. Try them out. It's like a cocktail in a can, but not a shitty cocktail in a can, which you're used to. Go to piggybackricemash.com for more info and grab a question in select stores. Yes.
Does WhistlePig have a theme song? And if not, have they considered the Whistle Song by Joel Santana? Is that the one that goes?
Well, fun fact about that was Kelsey's, my older daughter's first favorite song. Was that
really?
Yes. So whenever I would stay home with her, whenever her mom was at work, we would always listen to music while we would like clean or like cleaning bottles or doing whatever. And I think it's because of the whistle. It's very baby enticing. Yeah. And so Kelsey would like be bobbing her little red hair around and like loving it. So still, and it's amazing that those songs, Cardi has those songs too, that we used to listen to a lot when McCartney was a baby. You put them on now and they don't really remember it, but it's almost like there's a memory that's deep in their mind. And they're like, I know that song, but I'm not sure where. And I'm
dude, I have a handful of songs that I will just instantly transport me back to my mom's car.
My baby, it's Disturbed, and I sit him down and I have him watch drone videos when I'm making bottles and stuff.
That and Drowning Pool.
Drowning Pool. He's a big Drowning Pool guy.
Song number 2 by Blur. Obviously.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he's a big 3 Doors Down head.
Oh,
Rob me when I'm
forget it.
here. Rob me when I'm gone.
Yep.
Oh, my songs like that are definitely like 80s ballads or like pop, like with Whitney Houston or Michael Bolton, Peter Cetera. When those songs comes on,
Peter
it's like
Cetera.
when Glory of Love comes on, I feel like I can smell Windex because that's what my mom would clean to all the time. I'm like, oh shit, need to get some Windex out and start spraying all over the place.
Yeah, you do.
And I still do. If I clean up my office, I'll put on Chicago in here and listen to that.
Glory of love.
I love it. Chicago, Boston, play the hits. I don't want to listen to these newfangled things.
Yeah, that's
Kate, first of all, there's big drama and on Twitter this week. How did you feel about Taylor Swift's drama this week, Kate?
Speaking of Blur that you mentioned earlier, it's him. It's the lead singer of Blur and the Gorillas.
Is that the guy who's in Blur?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
So
I saw like him talking about songwriters, and I forget, it might have been Keegs that posted lyrics to one of the songs that he wrote, and it was just the same word over and over again for 4 minutes.
Yeah. He said that. Do I hear music?
No,
maybe I don't know.
Oh, I haven't.
I thought you were doing a bit.
Playing. Sorry, hold on. I have an ad. As soon as you said that, Chaps, this intense music started playing on my computer that I thought you could all hear.
Anyway, you figured that out. I just want to say, can we just leave people alone? You know what? If she writes her music or if she doesn't write her music,
she does write her music. And
I don't think we can leave her alone. Like if you go in and like, we got to leave her alone about this. No, you got to stick up for Taylor Swift and say she writes her own fucking music, because the haters are going to come out in full force and try to be like, discredit because she has a vagina.
Thank you. She has a vagina.
Right.
And
exactly.
These guys who have worked their whole lives.
Nobody said that about Kid Rock when he dropped his new Toby Keith, Bud Light Lime, Eagle Screaming music.
Right.
Yeah. That's
when
true.
he just essentially went to Breitbart and just copy and pasted all the top comments and put it in a song.
It was like a bot wrote it. Like
when he bot would have bod, no one said boo. But yeah, I know I'm a firm believer that she does write her own music. So that's why I'm saying leave her alone, because she does, I think.
People don't talk enough about Kid Rock being stolen valor poor either. Like that guy grew up in a mansion.
Did you know he grew up in a mansion? Yeah, he's rich.
No,
yeah, he's not poor at all.
Yes,
you think Bada he like comes out that trailer and like starts getting nuts with it. You're like, that motherfucker's poor. I love him because I'm poor too.
He dresses like that
because he's got a poor person body. He's got the poor body.
He's got poor person hair. It's the thin hair.
It's the thin hair.
If Kid Rock gets rid of his like raccoon eyes and thin hair, nobody thinks anything about it. They're like, oh, that's Steve from the Country Club, because it was Steve from the Country Club. That's why he goes by Kid Rock, because he's not.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the house.
It's huge. Like the house is enormous on like 10 acres and shit.
Do you know what his parents did for a living? Or we just know
I think they had OnlyFans. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they had an OnlyFans account. They sold their underpants, I think.
Farts in a jar.
Right. The queefs in a bag. They sold.
Yeah,
that'd be hard to get a queef in a bag.
No, it's not.
Yeah, probably easier than a jar. Have a nice seal.
Not that hard.
Like a snorkeling mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of farts in a jar, there was a big old loud. Yeah, there was a big old loud fart that went across our country last night, and it disturbed Chaps greatly. When something happened.
Listen,
and he texted me right away about it.
We need to establish a little bit of a decorum, because people that know me know at night, my wife and I, once the kids go to bed, we watch Jeopardy, and we have forever. We DVR it on Hulu and we start watching it usually right at 8:30 on the dot Central Time. Now, I understand that in different parts of the country, Jeopardy comes on at different times. Like on the East Coast, it drops at 7:30. Here in Central Time, it actually comes out at 4:30. And
you got spoiler alerted that Amy won.
Yes. And so I'm scrolling Twitter, like getting ready to wind down, and not only scrolling, people tweeting at me like, dude, I can't believe her run is over. Are you going to write a blog about it? And I'm not now. Like you motherfuckers, there should be a decorum, just like when a huge movie comes out, like one of these Marvel movies or something like that. You have to have like a 2-week time period. I'm not saying it needs to be 2 weeks, but give me a day. Like
counterpoint.
Okay, but can I finish my point before you rebut me?
To the correct time zone.
Yeah, seriously, just
that's your fault.
Even then, I would still be DVR'd. I can't watch it live. Like I don't have like the sit down time. That is no longer exists in America. Everything is DVR related. So if I'm sitting here watching it, if it's a normal day and somebody's won like 2 in a row or 3 in a row, people are talking about it. Yes. Fine. But once you go over 10, like I think over 10 wins in a row, everybody needs to go to movie rules. There needs to be a shift across the national conscience of Jeopardy.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's one thing to spoil a random night of Jeopardy. It's a complete other thing when you have a historic run going on and you do that where you're just getting out of the front of the story and spoiling it for other people. Because
how much did Amy leave with, by the way?
Like what? Almost $1.4 million.
1.4.
Imagine being
she won 39 in a row. And she knows like everything. She knew everything about everything. It was insane.
Like James Holzhauer, like part of his appeal, like he knew a lot of stuff, but he was super risky with his daily doubles and how he would go about going through the board. Place. Yeah. She was just her buzz in to correct answer ratio was absurd. It was something like 95%. If she was buzzing, she knew it.
She's the Peyton Manning of Jeopardy, whereas James and Matt Amodio, I feel like are like a Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, where they could have dropped their arm angle and just sling it across the yard. They'll walk away in one game with like 130 grand. Whereas Amy set her sights off, she was still behind the center, calling the plays at the line of scrimmage and just going down methodically and running it down your throat.
Yeah, I agree with that comparison because I've always maintained that I thought Peyton Manning played a different position with how smart he was and just knowing the defenses. And a lot of quarterbacks know the defenses, but he seemed to know it at a different level. Just didn't expect to see her go down like that. Although she has not been great at Final Jeopardy
lately. She started super hot.
Yes. But you could just see as soon as that question came across, when her pen was not moving, she was in trouble. But even then with these historic runs, I still thought somehow she was still going to pull it out because with these runs, you got to have some luck involved where
it's like my peanut butter and jelly runs. Like sometimes you think you're out of creamy or crunchy. And next thing you know, you go in there and you find a little travel size that was put in with pancake order from like First Watch a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. We were waiting for the travel size peanut butter to come out for Amy last night, and it just was not in the cupboard.
Absolutely right. What is in the cupboard is what's going on in round number 1. Kate, what do we got going on here? We got some fucking crows.
We do. We got some fucking crows. And not Cheryl. Not Cheryl.
No, not Cheryl Crow. Not Cheryl at all. Speaking of Kid Rock.
Oh, yeah. I put your picture away.
Careful. We don't want to get UCMJ because Kate sounds so much like Cheryl Crow.
I can't
voice of an angel.
If you tell me anymore.
Quickly. What is your favorite Cheryl Crow? Wait, no, hold on. What's your favorite Cheryl Crow song?
Oh, all I want to do.
I don't have one.
Have some fun.
That's also a stance.
I got a feeling because it's a song about day drinking, and boy, do I love that. Anyway,
mine is If It Makes You Happy. If it makes you happy.
You know what makes me happy? Crows.
When I shut up and let you talk, is that what makes you happy?
No.
But yes.
I do have a feeling. I scanned the story. I have a feeling it's been loosely translated from Swedish to English. You'll have to forgive a couple of these things.
Yeah, I was on Swedish news sites like I usually do.
The startup company Corvid Cleaning has developed a method for teaching wild crows to remove trash from our streets. This says to remove finches from our streets.
Do you know what finches are?
Trash?
That's what they call cigarette butts in Sweden.
Oh.
So now the story makes sense, right? Like this is a police call story, essentially.
Yes. Cigarette butts, a police call story with crows. The company has developed a
method.
Sorry, my fucking computer keeps sending all these crazy
computer.
Sounds at me.
So a company has developed a method that will teach wild crows to remove cigarette butts from the street. The crows that are found in Sweden are crows, quay, black and white magpie, raven, and the regular crow. In Sweden, coyotes, lynxes, and crows are also bred together. That's a difficulty in translation, I feel like. I don't think it's coyotes. Crows can be trained to clean trash from the street. The answer is yes. if one is to believe the startup company Corvid Cleaning, which has developed a method for teaching wild crows to exchange Fimpar for food. A pilot project is now being planned in a Swedish city. Something we'll tell you more about this week in science. But crows are the most intelligent wild animals in Sweden. They can learn to pick things up in exchange for food. This is fascinating to me as a dog handler that they've done this.
And I'll tell you, I love birds. And so I follow all sorts of birding, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I follow this woman on TikTok who's a big time birder. And for years now, she's had this pack of crows that's always coming through her yard. And she always leaves on the sill. She knows when they're coming through. She leaves these peanuts out for them. And slowly over time, the peanuts would be gone. They started leaving, I shit you not, money in exchange for the peanuts. They find coins. And in the morning, the peanuts are gone and she'll have a quarter. She has found like they've left like 1 cent penny. Like they find coins they leave for her for the peanuts.
That is amazing.
It's fucking wild. Yeah, it's insane. So yes, I totally believe. Can you imagine if you had a military working crow and those are the police collars now? Train them to pick up brass.
So this is what they've done. By teaching the crows to exchange the cigarette butts for food, they can help clean our streets and the squares. The bird put the cigarette butts in a vending machine, which then feeds them. It will simply be a barter, says Christian Gunther Hansen.
This is like those can recycling ports where you see people collecting the cans all day, and then they go and they get
5
money.
cents.
They turn the cans in. Yes,
it's like a coin star, but for birds.
That's brilliant. I truly believe this could help.
I know, right? So the cigarette butts in Sweden, it's the most popular common rubbish that there is. And every year, Sweden's municipalities spend huge sums on removing the debris from the streets, the squares, and bathing areas and other public environments. But the birds could put an end to this. Now, if we extrapolate that and bring that over to the military, like a brass call whenever you're shooting 9mm or you're shooting M4s, dude, if you could just be like, all right, go release the crows, have all the crows bring it back, and they're going to bring shit, and then you can have your debrief, it would probably speed up your time like exponentially.
Yes, I think that's brilliant.
But if they got real hungry and you were shooting in a real firefight and they had to come around and then they were like trying to get all the brass while you're shooting, that'd be dangerous.
Well, because you know what would happen every time we had to go do rifle qual, they give you the white rectangle box lunches that are very easy to break into.
The box nasties.
You would have to leave your box nasties like way back at the 500-yard line. You go up, and then at the end of the day, you make it to the 500-yard line. You eat your lunch. Well, half the time, as soon as we would walk away, the crows would come in, break into them, and they would eat our lunches while we were firing. So you knew, like, the crows were rat fucking our lunches. So yeah, I definitely think this is a great idea. Also, if you've seen the movie The Birds, we could train them to also attack, perhaps.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you had.
Birds are scary.
They are, dude.
Beaks and their talons and stuff.
My sweet baby boy, Gussie Boy from Heaven Above. When he goes outside from time to time, he will get absolutely swarmed by grackles here.
Grackles, yeah.
They will fuck him up, and he gets so nervous. Dude legitimately has PTSD about it. Like he was out there one time and was chewing on this bone that I got from this butcher shop that still had like some meat on it. Like they smoked these huge cow femur bones, and he was holding it in his feet, like with his paws up in the air, laying on his back in the grass. And all of a sudden there was like 30 grackles that just came down upon him. And you could just see his face like out in the yard. I was looking through the window and he was like, oh my God, it's grackles. He ran up to and now he won't go outside. If there's birds all over the place, he's like, no,
that's too bad. Because he's obviously bigger. Yeah, he's bigger than those birds though. He needs to realize his own strength.
I mean, he's 100 pounds. He's big.
Yeah, I wish there was a human equivalent for you know how you get we were just talking about with dogs getting the bone, and that just looks so enjoyable and delicious. I wish there was a human equivalent.
Cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
For me.
Yeah, true. We by the way, we need to start using the word rubbish more. I just realized hearing it in this story. We definitely need to incorporate that more. So
also, what's the worst prank you could pull on somebody with a cigarette butt?
Ooh, I don't know.
Kate, it's probably happened to you before. Probably not to you, Cons, because you guys wear your uniform different. But
putting them in the pockets, the butts in the pockets,
and in the Marines, like because you roll your sleeves out with the white part out, it was easy, and you could just be like, "Hey, what's going on with your sleeves?" And I used to do it to my Marines all the time, like, "Oh, what's going on with your sleeves here?" And you put like 2 or 3 cigarette butts into their shit, and they're like, "Oh, thanks, Steph. I appreciate that. Thanks for looking out." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem."
Stink because that smell.
The next day, I'm like, "Dude, you smell like fucking ass."
Yeah,
and you can't figure out. And nobody You're lying
so
if you
strong.
think people unroll their sleeves and wash their uniforms every day because you try to.
It's like a week. Like 3 or 4 days at least.
Ruins it.
Yes, I had a chair.
You show me somebody that cleans their
where I put my
uniform every day, and I'll show you a liar. No shot.
A lot of our guys would pinch theirs off at the end, and then they put them in their cargo pocket, and I'd be like, "Dude, you fucking stink." So that's a great prank. Highly recommend that continuing.
What size murder would we need to police call a range?
Depends on the unit, I think. If you're going company size element, let's say you have a company size element and you're rolling out there with like 150, 200 folks with like all the different support elements involved. I think you got to go at least 3 to 4 crows per person.
Probably. Because here's the other thing I'm thinking. At some point, unless they're just dumb animals, at some point they have to be full and they're no longer hungry. So the treat is not going to entice them anymore. So they're going to stop picking up the brats.
A varied reward schedule, Con, you're exactly right. So you can't go in dog training. You have a reward schedule where when you're starting out, it's a 1-for-1. So for instance, if I'm teaching a dog to find bombs, whenever he smells whenever the puppy smells the bomb, they get 1 treat. After a while, you can move, not really in fucking bombs. You don't do that. It's always a 1-for-1, but you can move to 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Like if you're teaching heel or sit or down or any other normal commands, you can go to a varied reward schedule where you can even go like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 1. And it's going to be okay. I think that's what you got to do. You got to tell each crew, because let's see, you're going out to shoot a rate of fire. You probably have at least, what do you think you shoot total rounds? I mean, it's a lot. Like, so
7, 8,
200
bullets.
So yeah, I was gonna say a few hundred.
You got to go. I think you got to go at least a 10 to 1 ratio. 10 brass casings to 1 treat.
Okay.
You know what else would be great to train them to like?
Because you don't want entitled crows either.
No.
In your own yard to train them to pick up dog poop and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how would they do that?
Yeah. I think you need pelicans for that. Get it all in the throat.
Yeah. Depends on the dog size.
Yeah. You guys would definitely need a pelican. I need a couple of emus back here.
Oh, maybe not pelicans, but vultures, because I feel like vultures might be more apt to eat poop.
Vultures are scary, man. Like if you're just rolling down a road and you see a vulture, you got to get the fuck out of there. Because one little peck from a vulture could take off all your flesh. Not all.
So one more birding story. I listened to this birding podcast, and this kid out in the boonies.
Are you serious?
Was really interested in the vultures.
What do they talk about on the birding podcast?
So for months, he looked on the road for roadkill. And finally, and this is when he was a kid, there's a dead deer on the road. His parents help him drag it back to the farm. And he builds like a ghillie suit about like 10 feet from the dead animal. And so that he could study the vultures. So he's in the ghillie suit, just sitting there. And all week long, he watches the vultures. And vultures are some of the oldest birds. Like they travel in a pack and they have this community. And he noticed that, and he did this multiple times, they're not just like randomly clawing and just ravagely picking. They go in a very specific order. They take turns. Yeah, they start with the eyes, then they get in and they do the brain, and and every single time they went in the exact same order of the way they ate the body.
I wonder if they have a ditty.
They have a ditty for it. They have an acronym for it. Yeah. So Deerby, I think it's called. They're
not the only. It's fascinating to find animals that do that, because you think that we're the only ones like that have those social skills, that level of animal. But even learning about like orcas, killer whales, and seeing how they do it, and they will find like a seal on a chunk of ice, and then they move all around it, kind of like you're in an above ground swimming pool to create a wave and knock somebody, like to knock a mom off of a float. They do the same thing, but it's just they eat a seal. It's insane. They're like legitimate killers. I guess that's why they call her killer whales.
Killer whales. My goodness. They're not calling
anyway
alive or whales.
All right, let's move on to round number 2. Kate, is your computer working?
My computer is working. I had a news story up that kept playing ads in my ear, which is what was fucking me up. AirTags. This is another thing on TikTok. I see moms buying like 5 AirTags and putting them all over their baby's stuff so that they don't lose their babies. Anyways, a researcher has sent one of Apple's AirTags to a mysterious federal authority in Germany to locate its true offices and to help prove that it's really part of an intelligence agency. Apple's AirTags have already been used for good and for bad in cases involving the tracking of individuals, but now a German researcher has used one to expose a government secret. Activist Lilith Whitman claims that she has uncovered how Germany's little-known Federal Telecommunications Service is actually a camouflage authority for a secret intel agency. Initially, she wrote how she accidentally stumbled upon a federal authority that does not exist. Now,
like if you did this in America, if you discovered a secret organization, I'm not taking to Twitter with that. I'm going to the grave with it. I don't want to get Epstein. I was
just gonna say, dude, as soon as you get boisterous about it, then you disappear. And
I love having sources about sports, about entertainment, government stuff. Dude, that shit's scary when it's stuff that you shouldn't know. Like if it's stuff that's like we got worms in our food and metal slivers here, I don't mind raising a stink about it. But if it's something CIA or NSA related, buddy, count me out.
Should I not have sent an AirTag to Hillary Clinton's secret bunker last week?
No.
Am I going to disappear soon?
You certainly shouldn't have said it just now. Maybe we can bleep that out.
Awkward.
I don't want to see you disappear.
Now Whitman has detailed her subsequent and extremely thorough attempts to prove her suspicion. She has methodically gone through every step of learning what she can of the intelligence agency, including where it is. Some of the steps she details are no longer possible to reproduce, such as simply looking up a list of federal authorities online. Similarly, she includes transcript of phone calls with officials whose cell numbers she says just stopped working. Through calls like that, IP searches, and even driving to official buildings, Whitman worked to track down the mysterious Bundesservice Telekommunikation of Federal Telecommunications Service.
Kate, that was fantastic.
Thank
what
you.
A tour de force.
Please
flash that on the screen.
Yeah, put that on the screen so people can see how difficult
word
that
on
was.
the screen. Kate just, wow. Kate, honest to God, Foreman should call you back and be like, look, we're going to give you a master's in German right now. That was an unbelievable display of reading. Well,
thank you very much. Thank you. Anyway, she believes it's part of the Federal Ministry of the Interior, the BMI, the Federal Minister of
now you flew too close to the sun. That wasn't as good.
Yeah, you try to reproduce it. Now you're ending up in Russia. Sad.
Oh, sweep the chimney. Woo, woo, woo.
There you go. And we're back on track.
Anyway, there's two camouflage authorities, both part of a secret intel agency, blah, 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 blah. But my question with this is so she thinks she found a secret intel agency, okay.
Right. That's exactly my point. I think that sometimes people spend so much effort in finding something and they're just like, well, yeah.
Is this kind of like a thing where she thinks like a Snowden-y kind of thing? Like, hey, everybody, they're watching all of you. Like, which could be the truth. And you never know, like with the government, there's things that they could do with computers. And obviously this is no surprise to anyone, but it still really is fascinating how forensic computer analysts go through all the different data and figure it out. I watched this thing on one of the Duggars. I don't know if you guys have been following that. Yes,
the Duggar who was convicted of
perverts,
and people say child pornography, child rape film, essentially what it is, not pornography. But
yikes.
He was convicted of that. And they had the different federal agents go to the car dealership that he owns and was working at into his little computer lair where he was downloading all that sadistic shit. And they released the tapes of the federal agents talking to the Duggar guy about it. And they were going through the federal agents. You could see how Darth Duggar's demeanor changed completely in the middle of the interview where they were talking about, oh yeah, we just need to look at the Wi-Fi, the router, and some of the downloads and some of the files. And he was like, oh yeah, feel free. And he was like, just so you know, we have some of the best engineers, the best computer engineers in the world. And this is what they spend all their time doing. So even if it was deleted and it was double deleted and you wiped the hard drive, we're going to be able to find it. And you could tell he was like, oh God, I didn't think about that. And then they showed this article that I was reading about it that was about cyber crimes. They can go in and every keystroke is recorded in your computer. Not even just the location you
find
went.
Out if you think your spouse is cheating on you, there's this thing you can download where they don't realize it, but you're recording their keystrokes so that you get transcripts of what they're emailing to people and stuff.
It'll be you can where he would type in 4 or 5 things, backspace. It has everything, so you could see. And then they went in on the closed circuit cameras on the TV that they had. They marched up a time where the computer had taken a screenshot of something, and they marked the time clock on the actual computer could pinpoint the spot where he was sitting whenever he was typing all these different things based on a reflection on the screen from the glasses. What? And I was like, holy fucking shit.
Dude,
and the computers were completely wiped and they still figured out everything.
I mean, as much as you think you might know about technology, you just have to know that there's 12 people minimum who know exponentially more than you, and you'll never be able to cover your ass.
Dude, I can't even find a TikTok video that I want whenever I scroll the wrong way. Like when it refreshes and it starts your new feed, I'm like, fuck, I wanted to share that with somebody.
If you're
and now it's gone. I'll never find it again.
Hit us up. Would love to have you on and hear about all the
we need an expert in two things. One, for this, and two, for the type of stuff that we're going to do. If you're an Intel briefer, if you've ever worked in an STEL or S2 shop, or you have counter Intel type of skill set and you've done briefing and you could do 2 minutes or less, I would love to be able to contact somebody that could be like, break this story down Barney style in 2 minutes or less, and then send it to us so we can have actual briefings. Because us trying to figure out international conflicts, I'm going to be honest, we're way out of our depth. That's not. So
we're going to try and explain it to you, but don't regurgitate what we told you to anyone else, because you're going to get probably proven maybe slightly not.
We might flub a couple details like from time to time. Because unlike other military podcasts, we admit we don't know shit about shit.
We don't know anything. I don't even remember I don't remember half the shit from my own experience. So.
I was very happy this morning whenever I texted you about a Blue Money Valuable Bag that you know what it was.
That I remembered what it was. Yeah, Blue Money Valuable Bag.
Mm-hmm. All right, what do we got for round 3?
All right, Russia. This is like Charlie Kelly at the corkboard. Okay, me trying to show you guys what's going on. So Russia's continuing to build up its forces around the Ukraine, even as negotiations to tamp down tensions continue. But it's not enough yet to carry out a full-scale invasion, according to the latest Ukrainian military assessment.
Why do you think Ukraine is the only country in the world where everybody's default is to go the Ukraine?
Ooh, no, the Sudan.
The Sudan might be up there too. It's just interesting because I've just seen it, and I don't think you did it intentionally, Kate. Like so many people and people from Ukraine will be like, it's not the Ukraine, it's just Ukraine. Like you're from Ukraine.
But like here in New York City, it's the Bronx, not Bronx. You wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to Bronx tomorrow. You say, I'm going to the Bronx. And that's how I feel about the Ukraine. I don't know why.
I've never heard someone, I'm going to Bronx.
Yeah,
never.
No, I'm going to the Bronx.
Huh. Yeah.
But you would say, I'm going to Manhattan. You would say, I'm going to the Manhattan.
And Brooklyn and Queens. It's only the Bronx is the only one.
Yeah.
So Ukraine is the Bronx of Eastern Europe.
Oh yeah, you could say that. I would say that's fair. That Ukraine is the Bronx of the Eastern Bloc. I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe like Johann Bronx was Ukrainian or something.
Yeah.
So
true.
It's named
what a
after
wonderful symphony.
Thank you. Anyway, Johann Sebastian Bronx. That's a guy. Right? What? Okay. Russia's surrounding, but Ukraine's saying, don't worry quite yet. They don't have enough to invade us yet, is what I gather from that. And the armed forces of Ukraine are ready to protect the territory and population. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said late Monday that the situation was under control and there's no reason to panic. Still,
yeah, right, Dad. That's Dad.
That's exactly what somebody would say when you really do need to panic.
That's Dad talking to the family when he lost his job. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah, there's no need to panic. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Still,
why are we in a bread line then? Well,
just
or when it's like 30 years ago before GPS. Dad, I think we're lost. No, we're fine. Well, I haven't seen another car in 25 miles.
Yeah. Anyway. Still, Russia is continuing to Russia. They're building more forces up around the border with its former republic. There are now more than 109,000 Russian ground forces around Ukraine, plus an additional 21,000 Russian air and naval troops for a total of more than 130,000. The Ukraine assessment says that Russia has deployed 58 battalion tactical groups near the border, which are on high alert, which I have to imagine middle of winter, those 130,000 are straight up not having a good time. Probably.
Dude, have you seen the videos of like the drone footage of all the different tanks on trains and shit going through? Yeah. Like what
it's like here when they're like, they're rounding us up to make us take the vaccine, but it's real over there. Yes, you know, it's here it's more of a travel and for maintenance thing. Anyways,
but 130,000 troops is not a small element. That's more than we've ever had in Iraq or Afghanistan at a given time. And
that's more than a third of Russia's battalion tactical group. So a battalion tactical group, it's a temporary operational flexible formation blah, 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 whatever. They're just around is all I need to say there.
Right.
Russia continues to redeploy troops to Ukraine's border to maintain tensions in the don't worry about us. We're just trying to maintain tensions. I love that. In the region and put political pressure on neighboring states. In this way, Russia creates new offensive groups along the Ukrainian border and in Belarus. It redeploys part of its troops from central and eastern regions, blah, 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 blah. Basically, we're buzzing around Ukraine. We're just buzzing. We're just being assholes. The huge.
This is really what's been going on now, because between December 22nd and January 24th, the Russian-backed separatist forces conducted nearly 90 artillery attacks, resulting in Ukrainian troops killed and 11 wounded. But since they started going into Russia when they annexed Crimea, they've had over 14,000 troops killed. I did not realize that until I saw
that one more time. Sorry, say that one more time.
Since Russia started going into annex Crimea, there's been 14,000 Ukrainian troops killed.
That's been very quiet.
Where did you see that?
That's happened in the last few years. Like, it's been happening since 2016, I believe, is whenever that, or 15, whenever that happened. But this is from the Associated Press. The State Department is reacting to that situation. And one of the generals that's involved with CENTCOM actually made it a mark. Like, this is not a small conflict. Like, when you're talking 14,000, that's double the amount of U.S. troops that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan combined.
And just for the record, like, Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union before it collapsed at the end of the Cold War in 91. And the disintegration of the Soviet Union left Russia with vastly depleted population, because Russia's huge, but the population's there's huge swaths that are just completely empty there. So they lost a ton when they lost Ukraine, and it diminished Russia's superpower status. So Ukraine was a huge loss. So now they think, with everything going on in Russia on the struggle bus, Putin regaining Ukraine would be a huge power move and a huge win for him. Bring back some of the clout from that he lost in the Cold War, essentially. So that's why this is happening.
Dude, the Cold War ended like 30 years ago. Move on.
Get over it, Pete.
Seriously.
Jeez.
Unbelievable. You're still dwelling on shit from the 90s?
Texting us, man.
But I was looking up reasons why this is actually going on. And it's really hard to figure out, because Russia is so good at propaganda and pumping like all kinds of digital sources.
Yeah, they're doing great here.
But all of this is going to come down to, just like every major war in the last 30 years, it's coming down to oil and natural gas, because Germany is playing half measures and saying that they're going to be really supportive of NATO and sending things like 5,000 helmets. That's what they're sending to Ukraine to help the effort. But
it's bicycle helmets, it turned out.
This shit is happening because places like Germany are moving away from nuclear power. Like, they've shut down all their domestic nuclear power plants and are going back to Russian natural gas. What pipeline do you have to go through in order to get from Russia to Germany? You have to go through Ukraine to get there, go all the way up and make it a lot longer. So that's one of the main reasons why. If Putin has Ukraine and can control Ukraine, then he can control essentially the natural gas flow from Russia all the way to the rest of Europe. And they can really have huge financial windfalls. And that's the way that you develop a legit superpower, because Russia is not a legit superpower now, even with the root numbers. And it was years ago that we had Kinziger on, and he talked about like how intel sources looked at Russia. Russia's top tier organizations are very good. Behind that, they're awful, and they will fall apart immediately. Like, I'm not worried about a ground war with Russia because our air is so much stronger than theirs. But still, man, like, getting this close, and the Biden administration kind of like tiptoeing around, and Blinken being kind of a bitch about it like he usually is, I feel like this could be a huge pop-off point.
So I think that's what they need to send a very clear message, because I think they're trading on their reputation from decades ago. And to your point, they're just not what they used to be. And I also think, I think there's a way to diplomatically resolve this situation, but I also think there is no diplomatic way to resolve it from Russia's standpoint. They think they just need to go in and bully Ukraine into getting what they want.
Because they have, and it's worked.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Kiev, and they did it with Crimea. Like, that is just the way that it's been going. And now with Ukraine and Belarus, if they can get both, that's Belarus is the country that's right on top of Ukraine. And that is so significant as far as getting the natural gas from like Siberia and shit like that all the way to Western Europe.
And I understand the infrastructure, that makes sense. And believe me, I don't purport to be some foreign policy expert on this situation. I know as much as the average Joe, if not less, but it just stands to reason that there are other ways to figure this out and maybe work together with the Ukraine. I mean, come on, it's 2022. We don't bully anymore, you know?
And like
Russia, get with the times.
Putin, toxic guy, former relationship with Ukraine. Yes, he could choose violence, but why not gaslight him a little bit? Why not love bomb the Ukraine? Buy him a golden retriever puppy. Say you're so sorry about the Cold War stuff. Okay, sorry about the Soviet Union. You guys are looking so beautiful. I love you. I miss you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to round number 4. Another Russian story, but this time it comes from the fisherman. I love it.
This gentleman is handsome, whoever this guy is.
Very handsome. Have you guys are you fisher people?
I used to be. My grandfather was a big fisher guy, and we used to go together all the time. I would love to get back into it. Sad fact is I live in San Antonio, and there's not much.
Much.
I'm friends with people who fish, so like I'll go out on their boats, and I kind of will do it, but I'm not like very deep into fishing.
I was just gonna say, chaps, you're on the edge of the lake, shitty beach folding chair, maybe a hoagie or something. Cons, you're on a giant boat named like the hot butt cheek 7 with a higher up officer veteran, and you're looking for like silver tuna.
Yes.
Both are fishing.
Yeah, but I'm looking for like catfish and doing it with hot dogs.
Chaps is noodling. Chaps is sticking his arm in swamp holes. And
me and Hannah Berry just hanging out.
And I'm trophy fishing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're trophy fishing. Either way, it's a delight. I grew up fishing. My Uncle Bill.
I didn't know that.
Yep, I grew up fishing, going up to the Poconos and all that stuff. And then creeks and ponds and stuff around my house. And I even got bluegill fins under my fingernails when I was a little girl trying to take it off the hook. And not a good time. But anyway, I haven't done it in a while either.
What's
I went to try and take a fish off the hook, and I got bluegill, the spikes of their little on top of their head. I got it under my fingernails, and put a damn.
They're sharp too. They're almost like
very sharp. I was
pricks.
bleeding all over the place.
Yeah.
Anyway, fishing, and in the Marines, we went deep sea fishing on the weekends and Oceanside, whatever. Blah blah blah.
I put this poem on there, Kate. I wanted you to read this very famous Irish poem in your best Irish accent.
Okay, no offense to my Irish family who probably consider this offensive.
A real Galloway girl. Here she is.
Yeah.
Kate Mannion.
Galway.
I've finished life's chores assigned to me, so put me on a boat headed out to sea. Please send along my fishing pole, for I've been invited to the fishing hole, where every day is a day to fish, to fill your heart with every wish. Don't worry or feel sad for me. I'm fishing with the master of the sea. Oh, this is about you're dead, but don't worry, I'm in heaven fishing. Okay, well, we will miss each other for a while, but you will come to bring your smile when you die too, assumedly. That won't be long, you will see. Yikes.
Jeez.
Till we're together, you and me. To all those that think of me, be happy as I go out to sea. If others wonder why I'm missing, just tell them I've gone a fishing.
That was actually written by Osama bin Laden shortly before he was placed in the water.
He did. And he ended up in the sea. So it all worked out.
He did.
He wrote that to all his kids. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, group of fishermen, they're planning to peacefully disrupt Russia's plans to hold a military exercise off the coast of Ireland in February. Okay.
Okay.
The chief executive of the Irish South and West Fish Producers Organization has said the area is very important for members.
The well-known ISNF or WFPO.
Yes, everybody knows who those are. But Patrick Murphy says they want to protect biodiversity and marine life. So they don't want Russian ships and all their weapons and all their shit coming through and bonking all their fish on the head, ruining all their fish.
Simplify, protect marine life.
Exactly. Yes. Goddamn right. But Russia's ambassador to Ireland says controversy around the exercise is totally overblown. On Monday, Yuri Filatov held a press conference.
Russia, every fucking Russian statement is like, wait. This is baloney. This is absolute hogwash.
What are you guys talking about?
What us? Us?
No. Not
us. Throw out doctors from windows because they say COVID was here. What? That's not us.
Guys, that's not us anymore. That's not us.
No,
that was the old me.
Yuri held a press conference. The ambassador at the Russian embassy in Dublin. He said, "Hey, not in any way a threat to Ireland or anybody else. No harm. We're just like how we're hanging out around the Ukraine for ambiance. We're not doing nothing. We're also from Delco now all of a sudden. Anyway, Mr. Filatov said 3 or 4 ships would be involved, but I don't know. He says, I don't know if any missiles or subs. I don't know. I'm only directly involved with Russia in this whole campaign, but I don't know. Anyways, he said there's nothing to be disturbed, concerned, or anguished about, and I have extensively explained that to our Irish colleagues. He said the exercise is a non-story, which has become
I love to imagine him like a 4th grader learning how to write paragraphs, like complex paragraphs. And he's like, all right, so I need 3 here in order to not have a mismatch. So I'm going to go with, what are we going to go with? For 3rd, let's go with anguish. We're going to go with
anguish. Yeah, they're not going to anguish about it.
Don't be disturbed, concerned, one more. Anguish. Yeah, don't be anguished.
Well, back over on the fisherman side, Mr. Murphy said there were currently 500 million tons of blue whiting fish in that area moving up along the coastline, representing a 1 million ton fishery, which is huge. This is very important ground where fish come to spawn, and we don't know what's going on here. We should be entitled to go fishing there. And if we're fishing there, then these boats, these warships shouldn't be having war games. Yeah, I imagine like when I was fishing with my uncle, but I was like splashing around a little bit and being like, do. He's like, hey, a little tough to fish right now, Kate.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, you would
maybe
and fisherwomen would argue that you should have the same rules in a fishing spot that you would at like a mosque or a church.
Yes,
where you can't go in there when people are there. You just can't do it.
You can't come around. So because that stuff really does fuck shit up and disrupt the fish and the whole vibe of
my
everything.
Grandfather used to get mad if I would fart real loud on the boat. He'd be like, you can't do that. You're in a John boat, son. You're sitting on metal. That'll put
reverberate.
It'll reverberate all through the St. John's River to scare away all the brim.
Once my uncle took my dad hunting, and it took him up in the tree stand back in the 80s, and he looks over at my dad, and my dad's lighting up a cigarette to smoke in the tree stand. You can't do that. You're fucking up the whole hunt. Deer can smell. Anyway,
and they hate nicotine. They're very
deer do not like smoking, despite that poster in the nurse's office where one was smoking, and it was like it's not as cool as you think.
And Bambi's mom who got smoked.
She did.
R.I.P. in peace.
Too soon.
Rest in peace. Too soon, chaps.
Please. Still too soon. Please.
Anyway, the Fisher folks are saying like, we're not liking this. We're the real concern fishing gear on the back.
I know you're looking what you're looking for, Kate. What they actually did. This story was like, because we haven't got to anything that the fishermen actually did. This story was reported by every major news source in the world, essentially. The BBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, everybody wrote stories about this. You cannot find what these fucking fishermen did except for make a statement. They didn't do shit.
They didn't do anything yet. The news made it seem like they were like
they did. They made it seem like you have these heroic fucking red-bearded Irish dudes that are out there saying absolutely not to Russian nuclear submarines, when in reality, they didn't do anything. One fisherman put up a tweet and was like, please don't.
I'll say this. The Irish are obviously fighters. And I'm sure remember that show that would pit different groups against each other, like who would win, aliens or Yetis, and if they were in a war, and there was one, it was the Taliban versus the IRA. It was the Taliban versus the IRA. And the Irish know. All I'm saying is the Irish know how to sabotage.
Well, have you ever heard? Have you, any of you, maybe Nick, even have you any of you heard about the Westies, the Irish mob in New York, and how the Italian mob would contract the Irish guys to go do hits because they knew they were more gruesome than the guys they had in their outfit? Did you know that, Nick?
Yeah, we could stereotype the shit out of these Russians. Damn it!
I'm offended. I don't know. I'm just offended.
Sorry, toughen up.
I do admit though, those like whenever they have all the Russians like lined up with all their weapons and geared out, Russians just they're different. They are legitimately built different.
Dude, you remember the Georgians? If you grew up in like 20 below zero every year of your life. Yeah. Go ahead. What, Kate?
In Iraq and Afghanistan, the country of Georgia, we had Georgian soldiers. They were built different, dude. That's a very similar vibe to the Russian vibe. Just built like fucking ogres, man. Like
I had to put flexi cuffs on a Chechnyan once.
Oh my gosh.
And that
slippery.
Dude,
they're very wiggly. Chechnyans
was the strongest person I've ever touched in my life.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't big, like wasn't much bigger than me, but it was one of those things where you could like touch somebody's back, and I was just like, holy shit, every fiber here is muscle.
Dude,
how is this possible?
Chaps handcuffed him and then just quickly, delicately.
And I'm like,
his back.
oh,
like,
fuck me, Judge
strong.
Guy.
I mean, like all those countries are like freaking Bane. It's like you grew to know the darkness, but I came from it. Whatever the hell the Bane line is.
Yeah. Yep.
I was,
but they skip leg day though. They all got little legs.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't like shame on this
True.
show.
Okay, that's fair. All right. But Chaps, this leads you to a question for us.
Oh yeah, the question is what group? Because Irish fishermen, if there is a group of Irish fishermen that are drunk, that are fucking bringing in hundreds of tons
they're
of fish.
Drunk. They're not drunk. They're Irish.
Drunk. Oh, don't act like the Irish aren't drunk. Everybody knows it. That's the only reason why we even celebrate St. Patrick's Day in this country. Is because the Irish are drunks. Well,
I have a kid.
I would feel like they would be at the top of most people. They'd be on most people's list of people that you don't want to fuck with in a fisticuff battles. So I wanted to ask all of you your top 3 groups that you wouldn't want to fuck with the most. Nick, we're going to start with you. Number 1 overall pick.
Okay, it's the top 3 groups. Okay. Are just so I'm clear, are we going with just like nationalities, or we're just talking?
Doesn't have to be.
General?
It could be any group. Yeah, interpretation is part of the question.
Okay. I'm going to say the online wrestling community. They're vicious people, and they attacked me this morning. I don't know if anyone saw, but I was under attack.
Yep.
I did not see that. The wrestling community definitely strong.
Yeah, the IWC, as they like to be called.
Whoa.
Is it round robin, or am I going top 3?
Yeah, round robin.
Okay.
Kate?
I was going to say, I'm just going to rail off my 3.
Okay, we'll do that.
One.
Do you need a second, Nick, to get yours?
Yeah, give me
okay,
1 second.
Well, we'll start with Kate.
Number 1, Juggalos. I went to the March on DC, the Juggalo March on DC. I've followed Juggalos for a long time. I have rarely seen a tighter knit group. That's a band of brothers right there. I'll tell you what, and they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. If I went to the Juggalo Fest or whatever it's called, and I stood in the middle of them and I started a ruckus, bye, see ya. They're good people. They've got good hearts, but I wouldn't fuck with them. And they just don't give any fucks. Next, tight knit trailer park neighborhood. When we went down to visit our guy Trailer Park, and I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way, but he described it in the video that we did with him. Like, again, tight knit group. You don't want to come walking in there if you don't belong and be saying the wrong thing, because that's a squad. 3, women truckers. I follow because before Barstool, when I was struggling with math classes to become a dental hygienist, I started looking up a lot about becoming a trucker. I swear to God, the troops to truckers. I follow still all these women. You would be
a great trucker.
I follow on Twitter women in trucking. I still follow the Facebook groups.
I have a blast doing that.
Dude, I swear to God, I would probably thrive. I love it. Anyway, I follow all these trucking accounts on TikTok, whatever. But women truckers at the truck stops, they stick together. They know how to set like booby traps in their trucks. They're ready to fucking strike. I'm not fucking with them.
I feel like women truckers.
Do you think they partake in lot lizards?
Probably.
I think they BYO. I think they BYO the tools they need to enjoy themselves in their trucks.
Is the ultimate like leader of the women truckers the person that everybody looks up to? Eileen Wuornos? That feels like who their idol would be. Do you guys know who Eileen Wuornos
from
was?
Monsters?
Yeah.
Well, that's who people say I look like when I'm hungover.
Your last
That's it. I thought you said 3. Juggalos.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Tight knit trailer park neighborhood. Again, not in a disrespectful way, but that's tight knit squad. And then women truckers.
Yeah. All right. Cons.
Oh, Nick, did you want to go with your other 2 first? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can rattle mine off. So first one was the internet wrestling community, vicious people. Number 2 is moms groups on Facebook, like neighbor, like of the neighborhood. Very like the comment section is among the worst I've seen. I don't even know why I'm in the group, but I guess I just want to know what was going on. Probably should leave it. And the last is Juventus soccer fans. I live with like some of the most quiet people, most gentle people, but the minute that game is on, they just become the most ferocious people. They will fight their own family, and all manners go out the window. So soccer fans of a particular group, Juventus soccer team.
Oh yeah, those are ruthless. All those Eastern
hooligans,
Bloc soccer fans too. Good God, man, insanity. Cons, who you got?
Okay. Obviously, I mentioned the Westies, but that's not going to be one of my one because that's like a no-brainer. Nobody wants to mess with any sort of mob. But my first one is customer service representatives from any job.
They've had just because, and they're done with your shit. They're not dealing with your shit.
They didn't do anything, but they take the worst of everybody.
They're dead inside, big time. Yes, they got nothing to lose.
They have so much pent up anger and frustration at these people who are screaming at them as if they did anything wrong. So customer service reps. Yes. Number 2, and this was sparked by a recent story this past weekend, entitled finance bros who think that the world doesn't apply to them because they make X amount of dollars and they can do whatever they want. I think that group, that faction of folks from the finance industry run amok.
Shots fired at a lot of other West Point grads there, Cons. Wow.
Hey, if the shoe fits.
Yeah.
And then lastly, men who wear jerseys to football games, because that just tells me right out the gate, you have nothing to lose.
With a cigarette behind their ear. That's my dream.
Have people who I think grown men who wear jerseys.
What about couples that go in jerseys that are 99 problems and the woman ain't one?
That man's just dead inside. I don't begrudge them.
I've made out with so many of these guys at tailgates. I can tell you the exact smell of their stubble beard with smoke and booze mixed into it. It's a very unique smell.
Je ne sais quoi about it.
It's a je ne sais quoi.
I mean, every time you see a fight on the internet happening at a stadium, at least one of the guys is wearing a jersey.
Or tattoos like me.
Yeah. I mean, I just think if you're willing to get into a physical altercation at a sporting event where you have no outcome on the game, you don't have anything to lose. You don't have a job that you care about. You don't necessarily have a great family life that you care about, because if you had any of those things, that would prevent you from doing what these people do while they wear their jerseys. I think you would have enough sense to say, like, you know what, this fight, because you root for the opposite team, is not worth me losing my job, me going to jail, or any of that. So
now, how about, has it ever been posted, Cons, throwback jerseys? So let's say a jersey that's been out for a long, like, I understand not wearing somebody currently on the team, but let's say you're a 49ers fan, grew up a 49ers fan. You come up wearing like a game worn, like an actual authentic Montana jersey. I feel like that's completely different than showing up in a Deebo Samuel's jersey.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah, if you come with the Dwight Clark jersey, I have a little more respect because you're clearly a very
Army Navy
fan.
Game, show up in a Staubach.
Yes.
But it has the number 69 on it instead.
True.
But what it also
21, which is doggy style. That's what we forget.
Yeah. It just tells me, though, maybe you have a little bit more sense, because I think the throwback jerseys are more expensive. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to generalize here, but I think if you can afford a throwback jersey, maybe you have a little more sense.
Yeah, Connor, you never want to.
I might be digging my hole.
That could be considered classist on this show. You don't want that. Yeah. My 3 would be, number 1, Southern mamas. Do not.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
But they will come at you.
Cut your brakes. Cut your brakes.
They will beat your ass at a church softball game and have no problem doing it. Number 2, women who are scorned and cheated on by a less attractive man who is their partner.
Oh, wow. That's a good.
Unfortunately for me, it was a more attractive man with a more attractive woman. So I was powerless.
Yeah, powerless there. And number 3.
Otherwise, I would have
given them the what?
Fuck somebody's world up.
Exactly right.
And I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry.
No, it's true, though. It's very, very terrible. True.
And last one, I got inner city gas station attendants.
Oh, yeah. They have a shotgun on the ready.
I went to DC and was almost running out of gas in one of the worst neighborhoods that you could run out of gas in DC. And I walked in and I was like kind of nervous. Like the area that I was in, very out of place looking. It was when I was in the Marine Corps, so still very clean cut and shit. And this gas station clerk was sitting behind the bulletproof glass with his feet up, sipping on a fucking orange soda. And he was the most badass dude I've ever seen in my life. Did not give a fuck. It was amazing.
Yeah.
A group of those folks, you could fight with those people.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to round number 5, where we're going to talk about some news that was longly needed. And this is a more serious topic for sure.
Yeah, way overdue. So yesterday, will be 2 days ago now, if you're listening to this, President Biden signed an executive order to, and this is a tweet from him. He said, "Today, I signed an executive order to strengthen how our military justice system addresses several forms of gender-based violence and added sexual harassment as an offense under the UCMJ in honor of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen." I know everybody knows this story at this point, but I'm just going to kind of recap some things really quick. Calls for justice in the killing of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen have been partly answered as relatives, lawmakers, celebrities, and advocates celebrate the passage of the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act to help protect victims of sexual violence in the military. "The best way to honor my sister was having history being made in her honor, in her memory," said Myra Guillen, Vanessa's older sister. Vanessa Guillen, 20 years old, was a private first class at Fort Hood, Texas. She was last seen in a parking lot at the base in April 2020. Her dismembered remains were found near the base 2 months later. She was promoted to specialist posthumously. Guillen's family said she had told relatives and colleagues at Fort Hood, which had some of the highest rates of murder, sexual assault, and harassment in the Army. That place was known as the Wild West, essentially. It was a mess. But she had told people that she had been sexually harassed there. And watching interviews with the family, they said her mood had changed. She had been so enthusiastic about the Army. They could tell something was going on, and they could tell that something wasn't right. Key parts of the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act became law after they were included in the $770 billion National Defense Authorization Act, which got signed December 27th. It includes criminalizing sexual harassment under the UCMJ, improving how certain officials respond to sex-related offenses through independent investigations, and removing the decision to prosecute sexual misconduct cases from the service members' chains of commands. I'll get into that in a second, but that is something that we were desperate for over a decade ago when I was in, that I know other women were desperate for, and men, decades and decades before I was in.
And it makes no sense, because in a civilian police department or civilian, like, same type of situation, you would never do that, because you would have jurisdiction. Like you could not have that, because the jurisdiction would overlap, and you would have to recuse yourself from those investigations whenever you have a conflict of interest. And there was conflict of interest inside of the command whenever you have somebody that's in the command that's already doing that, especially if that person is in a leadership position and they're the ones being accused of it.
And
undue command influence.
It would be like if something so horrific and personal happened to you, and sometimes with someone else in the unit, and you have to go to their friends, their own friends, their
people
own
that they golf
leaders,
with and shit. Yeah,
their own, and you have to tell them every horrific little detail that happened to you over and over, knowing every command is gossipy, so many commands are toxic, whatever, and you knowing that they're not going to do it right, and having to put your business out there.
Because even if the command is quiet, you still have to walk past the E2s and E3s and the admin office that are going to know why you're in there with an appointment that's going to be set in staff meetings and shit like that. What's the update?
Scuttlebutt and gossip.
So next thing you know, everybody fucking knows your business. And that, and no one in the military, woman, man, whoever, they don't want that on them. Like, you don't want to be known as the person making that. It's almost odd that it is odd. It's fucked up that the way that the accuser is almost looked at worse and sometimes than the person who actually did the heinous act.
And so many times, again and again and again, from my own friends that I served with, I saw this happen. It happened too many times. They were the ones removed from the unit. The victim was the one removed. The victim was the one punished. The victim was the one who got shit on by everybody. And then they had to live with that on their own, in their own quiet little corner, while life went on as usual for the perpetrator. And nothing happened to them oftentimes. Like it's just, and this is all because of failures within chains of command. Like, to me, I was sitting thinking about this last night, and like I teared up with like anger that it's just happening now. And again, I'll get into a second. Back to the story. From the attorney for the Guillen family said, "Our soldiers are protected with freedom, rights, and protections they never had before. We lost Vanessa, but we gained rights for our military and our service members. The new law excludes commanders from being involved in military sexual harassment or assault investigations by directing them to request independent investigations within 72 hours of receiving formal complaints from members of the armed services."
And I think that's too long. I
think so too. I was shocked by 72 hours.
72 hours is way too long.
Yep.
Should be 24.
The commanders must also forward the complaints to their next superior officer's chain of command, who are authorized to convene general courts martial. to enforce further oversight.
So what that means there is it either has to be a regimental level colonel or it has to be a brigadier general is where it's going.
Somebody because so many times too, another problem with the way the system was before, and this is besides sexual assaults too, a lot of times it's called keeping things in-house. You didn't want this information to go any higher because they could put it under the rug because it would make them look bad. And so these assaults, these horrific things would get swept under the rug.
The court-martial authority is very important because that can't pass two lines of command. Where before you could say a captain was the company commander and that was a line of command, and the next one up from his or her chain of command would be the colonel that was involved, the battalion level commander, and
a lieutenant colonel at that.
Yeah, it could be a lieutenant colonel too, or major. I mean, you could have so many different things happen, but now it has to go to somebody who actually can convene a court martial. So that's going to be somebody with significantly more authority.
Yes, and to enforce further oversight, the law also creates a mechanism to track allegations of retaliation by victims of sexual misconduct and moves prosecutorial decisions in cases involving retaliation to special prosecutors. So now too, this retaliation I was talking about, where it's the victim who ends up having it the worst in the end, that's going to be looked at too. And hopefully that's going to be stopped. Another thing, they're going to look back again at the SHARP program, which clearly it's not working. Clearly it's not working. There's going to be a process by which service members can make claims for negligence. And
before we get into what the legislation actually does, I want to kind of address why this needed to take place and why what was currently in the UCMJ is not enough. Because you have general articles, there's so many different crimes and grievances that take place in the UCMJ that were covered under these general articles. Now, when you have a specific statute, it lays out exactly what the elements of the crime are and what the punishments for those crimes are. So, for instance, murder in the UCMJ, you have the elements of the crime which need to take place in order for it to be considered murder, and then it has a set of punishments that go along with it. When you don't have a specific statute, it gives the commander so much more authority to grant lesser sentences because there is no mandatory minimums for a civilian criminology. You don't have that in place. They can just say this is what's going to happen. You don't have for this crime, this needs to take place. You could get away with it essentially in a lot of ways.
You remove that ambiguity and you take a lot of it out of that commander's hands to an extent.
Which it should not be in their hands anyways.
Right. Another thing that's going to fall under this too is holding people more accountable for looking at Marines United when all these, the Marines had a hard drive that they would all share with photos and stalking and awful things of other fellow Marines. And looking at that, and they pretty much, for the most part, they all just kind of got away with it. Nothing happened to anybody. They weren't held accountable in any way. And that's going to fall underneath this too. The sharing of images and stuff like that kind of harassment is going to fall under it too. And they're going to establish trained sexual harassment investigators, again, outside the chain of command. And at least when I was in, boy, did they need training in general.
And this shit, what you're talking about right now, Kate, is so important, the sharing aspect, because that's when, obviously sexual assault and harassment in and of itself are very detrimental. But in military community, when that happens and there's picture evidence or there's pictures of revenge porn thing, that completely ruins somebody's self-esteem, self-respect, their ability. And it shouldn't be that way because you didn't do anything wrong. If you had your pictures taken that you shared with a partner, that's totally on you. There's nothing wrong with sharing with your partner. When somebody else does something that's despicable and shares without consent your pictures, you've been wronged in that way. And and it's hard as a Lance Corporal, as a PFC, as a young apprentice in the Navy, being in that position and being able to go to your command and say, these are the things that are happening to me, is difficult. Recently, just this week, there was a Tennessee lawmaker who she's a state legislator in Tennessee. And she talked about how somebody hacked into her Apple iCloud and found pictures of her and held her essentially hostage and ransom about different bills that she wanted to pass and things like that. And she said that it was so scary and so overwhelming. I didn't know what to do because I am a mother, I'm a wife. I didn't want people to have those pictures of me. I'm a public person, and having that out there would have been embarrassing for me. But she stepped up and took it to the state legislator and made that a crime now, to do that, to blackmail and to have that and to go after public officials. And it seems like that's what's happening here, is that they're finally catching the elements of what really is part of the toxic culture in the military, and they're saying fucking no more. If you share this shit, you're gonna get fucked too.
Yeah, and I'm just, you know, part of me is disappointed that it took this long. I think not anyone, but I think a lot of people looking on this from the outside would look at this and say, wait, that wasn't already how it was in the military, and would be shocked to find out that this legislation has to now spell all of this out.
But you know who I would say is not shocked? I would say every woman who's ever put on the uniform is not shocked.
Absolutely. No. You're right. Absolutely. I think it's good to take a microscope to our military. I think so many people in the military, veterans, and in our country in general, have a very rosy perception of our military, that it's excellent. And I'm very proud of our military. And I think it's a very proud organization, but no organization is without fault or without things that they need to work on. And that goes for the Army and the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard too. So the fact that this change is happening is somewhat refreshing, that they're finally taking a hard look inward and saying this needs to change. And I'm so upset that it took this woman losing her life for this change to happen. But I agree with the sentiment of the lawyer that it is historic change, and change in the military. The wheels of change in the military spin slow. So the fact that this has actually happened, I hate to say that I'm shocked, but I'm very, very relieved that it is finally come to fruition.
And it came to fruition not because of people in the military. It came to fruition because Vanessa Guillen's family never for a single second since the moment they found out she was missing, they never stopped. They fought and fought and fought. And I'm getting choked up talking about it because I follow her family on social media, and they are so still clearly like their lives will never be the same. She was so loved, and she was clearly such a wonderful person. But the whole family rallied and fought for her the whole way through. This is her sister, Lupe. I wish every family member out there will fight the same fight that we are today, because in 2 days, it's 1 year. And this is from at the year anniversary, they went to the Texas Capitol in Austin and they went to Washington, D.C. They went to the Texas State Capitol. They took these trips multiple times. Politicians, celebrities, everything. They multiple times protested right outside the gates of Fort Hood. They never stopped. And so this is an old quote, but she said, I wish every family member out there will fight the same fight that we are today, because in 2 days, it's 1 year. My frustration, my anger is the same, because it's not fair my sister was murdered the way she was. She had to be murdered for everyone to realize all of these issues. This has happened for decades. This is someone not in the military. And that's the quote that I wanted to get at. They had to fight. And sitting back last night, a decade ago when I was in, we lamented the way it was. And like I said before, decades before me, a fantastic, dedicated soldier who had wanted to join the Army since she was 10 years old. Her family talks about when she was a little girl, I want to be in the Army. I want to be in the Army. I want to be in the Army. A beloved sister, a daughter, a friend had to get brutally murdered with a hammer inside an armory, had to have her body dismembered with a knife, had to be missing for 2 months while no one in the Army was transparent with her family, who was begging for help. They had to lead the charge this whole way to get her found. They had to see the perpetrator get away and ultimately get away forever because of the way the case was handled. So they'll never see justice there. That's what had to happen for this to finally happen. And it is so overdue. And the Guillen family is just completely incredible to me. And her sister, Myra, said on Twitter, this feels so unreal. She was watching the press conference about it yesterday. My little sister shed light on the epidemic of sexual misconduct in the military. You'll never be forgotten. I miss you so much. I hope you're proud. They should be so incredibly proud, because what they have done. Sorry, I know so many women that I served with who have gone through sexual harassment and rape and things like that, and that they never got justice, and that we're still seen as a burden oftentimes instead of valuable members of the military, which we are. And it's just such a horrible injustice that this happened to her, and that she had to put up with sexual harassment from others before this happened to her, when she was serving our country so well. And she's a hero, and so is her family.
When you first saw the news come across that the president was going to actually sign the legislation, can you kind of walk us through, Kate, like what your emotions were?
Finally. I just kept thinking, finally. And I also felt like when I was in, I just accepted the way things were so much. And I was so afraid. Like you saw a thing, like we would lament privately. It sucks that it's in our chain of command. Like I would never want to go to my sergeant or my staff sergeant or my captain and tell him if something happened to me, like, what the fuck? Like, but it never went outside that small talk. Like, I don't know. It was just relief. And I truly hope that this marks a very real change. We're sick of it and it can't continue. And one other thought that I had of moving this outside the chain of command, I promise you, just because there's so many more men in the military, I bet if you looked at the stats gender wise, I promise you, just based off numbers, more sexual assault happens to males in the military than to women. Maybe the ratio is different, but I promise you, if the thought of it coming forward is intimidating for me, I imagine the stigma of coming forward to your own command as a male is tenfold. And I bet you this going outside the command will be life-changing for thousands of males in the military too. I bet this will make a big difference.
That's it. I think this is finally something that can make a difference. I think the military's efforts to this point, with the SHARP program and some other initiatives, felt somewhat like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound that didn't really have any sort of impact because we saw this culture continue to be fostered. So I'm hopeful that this will affect actual change now.
Yep. Anyway, one last, the Guillen family, just absolutely incredible people. And I'm grateful for them. So.
Yep. It's nice to actually have something horrific happen and then you have good things that come from it. And you never want something horrific like what happened to Vanessa to happen to anyone else. But if it did happen, you got to capitalize and make change. And it seems like that we're at least but the legislation is just one step. It's a culture change that really needs to take place. But this type of thing helps it. And when the president,
it was a necessary step.
Congress acknowledges both sides, when both sides of Congress and the Senate can agree on something now, I think it's remarkable whenever that happens. Like we don't agree on shit. When both sides of the houses and the president can all agree that something needs to happen, the culture within the military is fucked up and we need to make big sweeping changes. Maybe now we're at the point where we can do that. And it makes you a better force. Like to me, like whenever you concentrate on these issues, women and men who are in units who are doing things that don't have to worry about being harassed or sexually assaulted, or if they do, they know that something's going to happen and there's going to be justice on the other end. It changes the way that you can fight and it changes the way that you approach work. Like when I think about these things now, I look back at my career and think about different things that I saw and that I was too cowardly or too ignorant to really know what was going on at the time. Because you look at groups like the Marine Corps and it's, in my mind, it is like the old boys club of old boys club, where you have certain elements of toughness. There's certain types of jokes. I mean, we talk all the time, military humor is darker than most humor that you're going to find anywhere else. And you see those types of things happen and take place in joking manner or inappropriate jokes. And you don't think about it at the time. I didn't. I thought this is just the way it is. For instance, when you would have a gunnery sergeant see a corporal walk by in the short, silky running shorts and would make an like, oh, I'm glad we're not wearing sweatpants today. Aren't you, Corporal? Like, and it's obviously about her ass. And you don't think about those things in the moment. Everybody kind of chuckles and laughs. And sometimes even the corporal will laugh along because what else was she supposed to do? Be that only person who's making the stand. And it's the culture of constant sexual harassment
that I remember so much of, like, talking about regrets. Like, oh, Kate, you're cool. And they would talk shit about other women with me around. And I felt like if I don't politely chuckle, then they're going to turn on me too. And then I won't have anybody. And that was cowardice. That was cowardice. And I regret it a lot. And two, like, again, during Marines United, when they were sharing all those images.
Because the nature of self-preservation is so strong.
And I've talked about like when that was going on and seeing nobody. I had a great command. My command wasn't toxic, but that it never got addressed. And like just me in uniform, they were posting these pictures on there and talking about like, am I rape? Is she rapeable? Is she whatever? Like blah, blah, blah. Like the feeling of walking through the chow hall surrounded by hundreds of Marines and going, oh God, I bet all these guys are on that site. I bet all these guys share that stuff. Like you can't trust anybody. Like I hope that this starts to make a dent and stuff like that and change the way it is.
And I had some disturbing things and guys in the military still and veterans in my DMs this past week. And if you're listening right now, you're still in the military or you're a veteran and you think that this in any way negatively impacts our military or makes us soft,
you need to take moron.
You need to take a very long look in the mirror and you need to understand you are part of the problem and you can change that. But this in no way softens us as a military. This in no way makes us a weaker military. We are ultimately going to become a stronger force because of this legislation as we attempt to repair that culture that has plagued us for so long.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to save rounds and alibis. Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so for save rounds, I just want to again call it the YouTube channel for you guys. I see you guys, the views are going up, so appreciate that. Love to get the subscriber count up though. So if you do go there, I'm putting up clips each day from the pod. So putting up save rounds, you'll probably see what Kate just said here. It's probably going to go up there as a separate clip. So really appreciate if you guys would go there and hit that subscribe button. Help us out a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cons.
So thanks everybody for holding it down earlier this week. I wasn't able to mention last week, Army overcame a 27-point deficit in basketball to beat Navy. So congrats to the boys on that one. And then just kind of expound on a little bit from my officer's corner this week. Grown men don't wear jerseys. Just that's the extent of it. Don't wear jerseys.
Listen to cons.
Well, if you don't want to listen to me, I mean, Jay-Z said it best. I don't wear jerseys. I'm 30 plus. Give me a nice pair of jeans and a button up. So
he also cheated on Beyonce, so I'm not sure if we should trust him. You cannot cheat on Beyonce and have good judgment.
True.
Right, well, don't wear jerseys. That's the officer's corner this week. I'm good.
Catherine.
Oh, the enlisted corner. Wear jerseys in your office.
Your enlisted corner was eating fucking peas out of a can last night.
I'm so. Can I? So our
your life is
refrigerator.
Enlisted corner. Yeah.
Our refrigerator officially died. Our landlord can't get us a new until February 3rd. We have a baby. We have no freezer or refrigerator right now. There's a nor'easter.
What happened to all your like breast milk?
Because it happened. It died at night. It died at night. And so the next morning, we didn't know till the next morning. We lost everything. I had just gone grocery shop. We lost like hundreds of dollars worth of food. And now we're using the patio to keep things cold. So yeah. Anyway, and we have a nor'easter coming. So my fridge and freezer are frozen.
If you're not a dad or you're not a mom and you haven't been around a woman who spends time breastfeeding and saves it and puts it in the freezer, that level of gut punch is unimaginable.
It's so much time and effort. It's like
I've never pumped my boob, so I don't know, but I can imagine what my wife's response would have been if that would happen and anarchy in the streets.
Yeah, it's not a good time. I'll tell you that much. So
I would put them under a group that I wouldn't want to mess with.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If I could add them,
I don't call it liquid gold for no reason.
I'll put them in my top 3.
Once in the middle of the night, I pumped and I set the thing down and I went to pour it and I didn't realize the lid was on the thing. I literally, I dropped to my knees like Andy from Shawshank Redemption. I was like, anyway, I don't know. I wanted to tell you, there was a reason I wanted to tell you my fridge and freezer was broken, but now I forget what it was. Adapt, improvise, and overcome.
You have room temperature peas.
Oh, that's why I've been eating so much canned food lately. Is what I wanted to get at in my defense.
Don't want it to waste.
Okay. So I've just been.
So it is very enlisted.
Yes. I don't have a fridge or freezer. What am I going to do? Get something out of the fridge? I can't.
Call
so
Gunny.
I'm just going to eat.
Oh, Gunny, my fridge broke and my landlord. I mean, put him on the blacklist, Kate. Tell him that you're going to put him on the Barstool Sports blacklist. And nobody's going to be able to get a house there.
I'm gonna. But anyways, a ton of beets, a lot of peas, green beans. I don't heat them up or anything. I eat them right out of the can. I fucking love it. It's the only healthy thing I do.
All right. My save round is I want to thank Kate for her openness. I think that subject is a very difficult subject to talk about whenever you have personal experiences, and your honesty and vulnerability in speaking about your personal experiences is very commendable and very, I think it's super important for other women who listen to this show and the men who listen to this show to get a real emotional account of how this type of legislation impacts. It's not just something that's another dot and tittle on a government form. It's something that's actually going to change, hopefully, the course of people's enlistments and careers and things like that. It's well overdue. So, Kate, thank you for your vulnerability there. We'll be back again next week. Sound the Retreat.